Well, good morning, everyone. This is Joseph Antel from Adjuvant Protocols for Healing. I'd like to welcome you to the Zoom webinar today, which is Thursday, September the 15th, 2022. As you all know, some of us will be gathering in Denver, Colorado to the Back to School for Doctors program, which is in its 30th year. A little bit over 500, I think 530 right now registered. So I probably will get to see some of you. I'll be behind a table, an author's table, and be glad to say hi to you if you have an opportunity. As you know, I have started a series on actual case studies in the longevity of now these different trainings that are posted on my YouTube channel. I think we're a little bit behind on our posting, but I'll work on that next week to make sure that we're updated. And but this time, it isn't a specific case study, but of course, one pause here to mention that my book, Adjuvant Protocols for Healing, that these Zoom lectures are dedicated to my book, with around 500 protocols, and the explanation. Why did I put in the products that I put into various conditions? And of course, this can be purchased on Saline River Press, or if you're back to school, I can sign a copy and get it to you there. But one of the things that all of you, some of you are experiencing now as you get older, 50 years of age or more, is shingles. And I also included, which I didn't put in the title, herpes simplex as well. So we're going to look at both of those because the ranges of nutrient care are identical. A virus is a virus is a virus. So we're going to look at this today. But I do wish to give you more insight, just as if you were sitting in my office now across from me, and you said, Joe, I've had shingles. What do I do? So this one-on-one connection is extremely sacred and valuable to me. And I know that all of us, there's a good possibility that we will experience shingles in our lifetime. 1 out of 3 of us on this line, 1 out of 3, 30%, will experience shingles or obviously other viruses in our lifetime. So what can we do? And we're going to look at today how establishing and maintaining a strong immune system, which you all are experts at now. You're the pros, but just a review of that. But other things related that maybe you didn't think of, that in the dark places of Joseph's mind and subconscious mind and experience may be valuable to bring to the light. For instance, the pH, the overall pH of the body. What about the strength and fortitude of our gut biome? And of course, specific herbs that are crucial in these envelope viruses. So let's look at this, and let's look a little bit of background, because this is very important in understanding how to apply the frequencies that we have at our fingertips as nutritionists, as herbalists. How do we apply them into a medical world of medical science that is also puzzled with how to work with these different conditions? Virus comes from the word poison. It's a Latin word, are the most ubiquitous and abundant of all evolutionary entities. We may never know how many unique viruses exist on Earth. Right now, 320,000 types of viruses are estimated. But 1,000 unique viruses are known to infect humans, specifically everyone. Everyone has viral implications in their body, if not actually there, or will get them in their lifetime. That's 100%. It's fascinating to consider that they may have predated the last universal cellular ancestor. So viruses have always been, played a substantial role in the evolution of life on Earth, in particular our own. And of course, we know that viruses attack a wide range of tissues: upper respiratory, lungs, colon, liver, spinal cord, vascular endothelial cells, white blood cells. Viral infections have been responsible for an astounding number of deaths in human history. Of course, it is the most of any effect on human beings in the world over all the centuries are viruses. Remember that just 100 years ago, the main cause of death was infection. Yes, bacterial, but viral. The main cause of death. It's changed now, but that was the number one. And so there have been viruses, such as they mentioned in this article, smallpox, that because of vaccines have been eradicated, and HIV. Now, I do not discuss vaccines. If somebody, we've all been vaccinated pretty much in our lives. It's very few of us that have not. I am not for and I am not against vaccines. I am for what that person chooses, which is a very personal thing to me. And I don't discuss what I do with vaccines. Very rarely have I made a comment, because the healer does not get involved at the level of the challenge, of the condition, of the dis-ease. The healer cannot play a part if they're involved. And so the less said about that, but the most said about, here are my tools, here are my gifts, how can I help you? There are as many opinions for various vaccines as against. It is a battle that will never be won. And so there's no use getting involved in it, in my opinion. So HIV, of course, has infected over 75 million people and it killed 32 million. And then, of course, we've seen the coronaviruses now in the last couple of years, which have come and gone before. These are unique, but so were the others. And so, and of course, medical science gives us stats because it affects the world. The effects of disease also can cause profound damage to the world economy, how we live, our quality of life. So we're going to focus on the shingles, but I wanted to clarify, just because this is being recorded, what the difference is between shingles and herpes. Both genital herpes and shingles are conditions caused by viruses from the herpes virus family, but they are caused by two separate viruses and are different conditions. Genital herpes, of course, is caused as the herpes simplex, known as herpes simplex 2. Shingles is caused by the varicella zoster, so herpes simplex, herpes zoster. And of course, both conditions are commonly found in the US and both have similar appearing rashes. Now, remember that the herpes simplex, or the cold sore virus, is, of course, contracted through physical contact, either through physical intercourse, oral sex, kissing, any type of exchange of body fluids in those areas of the body. Where the herpes virus that causes shingles is airborne. Now, you could say, well, I know that the chickenpox virus is airborne. It's very contagious, airborne, which we'll get into in a second. But shingles, even though, I just checked with my son-in-law about this for clarification. The shingles virus is technically airborne. It's highly unlikely, unless, of course, the individual is immune compromised. But it is. But the shingles is very contagious on physical contact. So that's important to know. So what are the areas we want to look at? Well, we want to look at what are the substances, the natural substances that are going to literally obliterate this virus. And that is your vitamin C, not ascorbic acid, either in the form of Cataplex C or Cyruta Plus. And I'm going to go into these in detail here. Calcium lactate, because any phagocytosis psychotic phagocytosis process is kept under control and in many cases eliminated by ionized calcium delivered into the tissue through the vitamin F principle, fish oils, fatty acids. And the other factor that we want to look at also has to do with enveloped viruses, because the ones we're looking at today are the two. So you're most likely heard of shingles as well as rash and pain that comes with the virus. But how do you get shingles? Should you be worried? And who is at the most risk? Well, herpes zoster is caused by that varicella zoster virus, the one that causes chickenpox. Only people who have had chickenpox can get shingles. I've had practitioners argue with me. I never had chickenpox, but now I have shingles. So I don't say anything, but I can tell you 100%. If you acquire shingles, you have had chickenpox. It's the same virus. After you get chickenpox, the virus stays in your body. It can then return as shingles at any time, mostly over 50 years old. And again, she says, a medical doctor, as we age, our body's defense against the dormant virus weakens. Because of this, shingles is more likely to appear as the age over 50. About 30%, as I said, 1 out of 3. So, but if you never had chickenpox and you had the chickenpox vaccine, it would be unlikely you'd get shingles since you are immunized against the virus. So the fact that you've had it, and if you've chosen to get immunized, it's very unlikely, but it is still possible. And this is why having the foundational constitution of a strong immune system is so essential in this world. Shingles presents, of course, as a rash. And in fact, I have a photo here of it, as you can see, and it gets much worse. And it's extremely painful. It usually is around the abdomen and the arms, but it can appear anywhere in the body. It can get on your face, your eyes, cause infection of the eye itself, and it can lead to blindness. That's why the shingles virus is nothing to fool around with. And here is I guess what I have been called about the most. Pain is also a main concern with shingles. It can begin even with the rash. Shingles pain is caused by irritation of, so we always need to know, if we're going to apply nutrition, the nerve root. So you've got soft tissue, right? You've got collagen, which is your soft tissue, and you've got nerves, these little tiny nerves, and capillaries. The capillaries, which they don't mention here, are what feed the nutrients to that outer tissue or not. It is often described as a burning feeling. Unfortunately, 10 to 15% of people develop post neuralgia, and which is characterized by long-term pain even after the rash is gone. So this is what this post-therapeutic neuralgia is what I get the most questions on. Spreading the virus is rare, only usually happens by direct contact with the active rash. So, if you do have this, you must keep it covered and away from other people. So, the other comment, the reason I put this article in has to do with this. Those in most danger of catching the virus are pregnant women who have not had chickenpox or the vaccine, premature babies, and people with a weakened immune system. So those are your 3 to keep in mind. As we discussed in the other article, there serious complications can result. And in my opinion, shingles is nothing to just work with naturally only. You've got to bring in other factors. You cannot fool around with this, especially people over 70 years old. This is nothing to fool around with, which can result with shingles when it's handled correctly. Far less chance of complications from occurring. Vision loss. When shingles occurs near the eye, it can in turn cause infections to the eyes and very painful and loss of vision. This post-therapeutic neuralgia, this complication keeps the symptoms of shingles long after the actual blisters of the skin are done. The calls I get are people that basically ignored it, hoped it would just go away, or did very little from a herbal or nutritional standpoint. And then it lingers on for weeks or even months. And it can return if again, that foundational constitution is not reestablished in that individual, they can get it again. The nerve fibers are damaged and keep sending painful responses to the brain. Skin infections and neuralgia issues. There's a wide number of different neuralgia issues can occur with shingles, complication, inflammation in the brain if possible, and dangerous. People may lose control of their balance, their hearing. It also possible suffer from troublesome facial paralysis. So from medical science standpoint, they admit there is no cures for shingles. So the only, as I say, that they provide are antiviral drugs or vaccines of different kinds. So now topically, one of the things, there are several things you can do. And of course, we have seen other teachers with standard process do a great job using the chlorophyll ointment or the straight pearls, pricking the pearls and put it on there, because one of the things that does is it eliminates the pain from the toxin called guanidine. Chlorophyll neutralizes guanidine upon contact. So anything on the surface of the skin like that, or up into the rectum, you could even put it up in your nose, in your mouth, even in your, a little bit in your eyes, certainly would not hurt. But of course it's fat soluble, so it's going to make a mess in your eyes. And the chlorophyll stains everything. But if you don't care about that, which you're suffering, then obviously that is the main, this is the main, I guess I listed these in order of importance. USF ointment is the same because it will draw the calcium in those little capillaries. That F will draw it right out into the tissue. The other one that Lynn and others have taught me about is the Tramiel homeopathic ointment. It's very good for topical pain, inflammation. Now, our wonderful Dr. Jarvis, who wrote Folk Medicine, it's $9 for this book. You should have this book. You should read it once a year as a reminder. Here's what he says. Shingles, apply apple cider vinegar. Just as it comes out of the bottle, make sure you shake it up. To the skin area where the shingles are located 4 times during the day. So that's, every 3 hours, and 3 times during the night if you're awake. And it will keep you awake at night. The itching and burning situation in the skin will leave in a few minutes after the vinegar is applied. He is right. I've done this with sunburns and other skin irritations for sure. May burn a little bit, but it neutralizes and it changes the pH of that dermal environment. So, and he says, the other thing that, remember, if you use apple cider vinegar, it seems almost like not worth even mentioning. It's such a simple thing. You mean if I put vinegar? Yes. But the complications down the road of getting these neuralgias from this will not be there if you use vinegar. Shingles will heal more readily with this treatment. Now, the whole area of pH has been studied, and mainly with genital herpes, but also with any viral infection. Viruses, like allergies, primarily only can exist in an alkaline medium. Now, whether it's inward or outward, the skin should be 4. That's very acidic. If 1 is the most acidic and 8 is the most alkaline, 4 is right in the 7 would be in the middle. And the 4 is pretty acidic. And that's why a lot of these skin creams and other things that people use tend not to be acidic. So that's makeup. So be aware of that as well. But they realized this when they were doing these different birth control, using these different foams and gels in women, that the high acidity neutralized the semen, but also exposure of herpes simplex virus. Here is the takeaway from this research and article. Herpes simplex virus to pH of 4.5 or lower irreversibly inactivated the herpes simplex virus and reduced herpes simplex virus yields by at least 90%. In other words, this virus is pretty much eliminated if there is acidity in the area. So drinking apple cider vinegar, now, how much do I recommend? About a tablespoon a day. You could break that up into 2 teaspoons. Or what I do is I take a tablespoon, you can even do 2 tablespoons if you're really concerned. I put it in some water with a touch of honey, and I just sip it throughout the day. That's how I do it if I have something coming on or allergies or whatever I'm experiencing. So they noticed it topically, but the same principle applies internally as well. Now, the bloodstream is naturally slightly alkaline, 7.2 to 7.4, but still, when you get these different, when an imbalance comes in our bloodstream, the blood, go and look at these alkaline waters as an example, which can change the pH of your bloodstream. What are they? These are pHs of 8 and 9, all the way up into high alkalinity. Not good. You want to keep your blood pH balance right around 7.2 to 7.4 at the most. So now, John Courtney, of course, Dr. Lee's protege, taught us about 2 products that were systemic acidifiers. Phosphate liquid, which we've used a lot with the heart sound recorder for people with slow metabolism, slow heart rates, but Cal-Amo, ammonium chloride, calcium chloride, and betaine hydrochloride. So the 3 primary acid salts in a tablet form, 1 to 2 per meal is really all you need to keep that acidity going. This is really key. And then we'll look at the intestinal tract just further down the road here in our discussions. Very important. Now, you could say, well, Joe, I don't use much of these products, but most of you, if you've been with me at a meal, I am never without Zypan, which is betaine hydrochloride and ammonium chloride. It's missing the calcium chloride. So Zypan is my go-to acidifying product. So, but Cal-Amo is the stronger between the Zypan and the Zypan and the Cal-Amo, excuse me. So we talked a little bit about the chickenpox virus, which is usually, of course, happens with children. Most of us that have had children, we expose them to other children so that they got the chickenpox virus when they were young. And so most of our children have lived their lives really and probably will never experience shingles. So of course, they're vulnerable to herpes simplex through physical contact. And, having raised two daughters, I've always said to them, you got to check and see if these guys with intimacy, what their baseline here is in their own life. And then that's your choice. So that's what we say to our children. That's what we say to our grandchildren now. But the chickenpox virus, unless it gets out of control, is usually safe to expose children to it. Now, you don't have to, again, if you're not into that, that you have my total support and respect. And here it is. And one of the things the children growing up with chickenpox virus was the fever, which I'll get to in a second. But we always controlled this fever with calcium lactate. And no headaches. Of course, we got them adjusted, and of course the other symptoms that it raises. And then here's a little bit about the shingles vaccine. Now, not all of your clients feel the way you do about vaccines, and most of you are not in favor of them. But some people are. Some people need that. Because remember, Lynn mentions this in what I'll read a little bit from her desk, is emotions play a huge part in how strong the immune system is and how susceptible we actually can become through emotions. If people have great fear, then, maybe the vaccine is the right thing for them. Very little side effects from these. So, and you can read about that yourself. I'm not going to get into that conversation, but, and then of course, this is the main reason for the vaccine in some people is because of this post-herpetic neuralgia, because it is very painful. The areas, the skin areas are sore for weeks to even months, depending on how severe the neuralgia is. And these are, of course, always in the area where the shingles are. And here's where topical vinegar or chlorophyll or a combination of that. So the pain may come and go or be continuous. It can be described as burning, stabbing, shooting, aching, throbbing. And the main it feels like you get an electrical shock on the surface of your skin. It's very depressing. People do get depressed with this as it lengthens over in time. And then, of course, as the healing comes, on the surface of the skin, there's an itchiness, which is actually a good sign. So this neuralgia causes inflammation under the skin and mainly nerve inflammation or nerve damage. So this is, I guess, my main concern is the nerves don't get damaged down the road. If the nerves are getting damaged on the surface, the nerves are getting damaged internally as well. So it's not clear why they get this neuralgia, but it is an extreme risk. So with all of this nerve damage, we want to look at the collagen, the dermal integrity, the microvascular, and the nervous system itself. And the main product for this that I did not put in my protocol. This is why I go deeper into this. I gave you just general preventative, but if you get into severe shingles in particular, but also the herpes simplex as well, I use Cataplex G. I have always used it 50 years. Now you could say, well, what about B Core, Joe? You can try B Core, but I know this works. This is my go-to product for shingles, either Zoster, herpes zoster, or herpes simplex. These are the sources that you can be assured that are in there that help with the healing and the lessening of the sensitivity in the nerve and in the skin. So remember, the Cataplex G, along with AC carbamide, are the two desensitizing agents in the standard process line. Now you could say, well, Joe, well, how come you're not using the AC carbamide? You could, but that's not as, it's not specific to these two viruses, areas of viral infection that we're looking at. So what are the other signs that people need G? Night sweats. Now you could say, so are you saying, Joe, that if they have some of these symptoms that they would, if they're that deficient, they could be more susceptible to shingles? Yes. And you could do a study on this. People that get a lot of night sweats, people with burning feet, those are both liver issues, which G is so key for. The redness in hands or eyes, the sandiness in the eyes, redness and swelling of the eyes, there it is. And also that dryness and sandiness in the eyes. G is such an amazing product for this. Digestive distress. They can their digestive system never fully relaxes. That's a B2, a riboflavin and niacin deficiency. The main way you can tell people that would tend to be more prone to get shingles reactivation is they get cracks in the corner of their mouth or in their tongue, or they get a lot of muscle spasms. And I was just talking to a doctor the other day. They've tried everything with this guy with muscle cramps and muscle spasms. They hadn't tried the G yet. So I need to get back to him on that. And of course, the eyes, you notice these people with red eyes, the whites of their eyes are red all the time. And remember, these are the type, John Courtney would say, I would say, well, how do you know, John, if I should use B or G? Are they a type A personality? High strung, they jump, they react, their legs are shaking, they're picking their corners of their nails and their thumbs, they're biting their nails. Of course, that can be parasites. But if not, that's your G person. Very simple things how John taught me to look for. But he always said, Joe, they all cracks in the corner of the mouth are 100% G. And people that cannot relax, they eat fast, they're jumping around, they're up and down when they eat, they don't sit and rest while they eat. Watch a person eat, you'll see. And sensitivity to light, sound, taste. These are others. People who have to wear sunglasses during the day all the time. Oh, my eyes are way too sensitive. This is your G person. This is the person is going to be more vulnerable to these viruses. Remember, G is the antiviral side of the B complex. And I have it in here. Where is it? Somewhere here. Oh yeah, has antiviral properties in conditions from warts to earaches. So don't get into, please, G being, well, we don't need G now. We have B core, or not think of G when you have these different conditions that I describe in these notes here. Make a mental note, as I said, or memory, make a memory of these particular symptomatology. You know, the person that gets skin eruptions all the time, or this is the other one, everyone. The other one is, they say, wait, you know, Joe, I go from diarrhea to constipation to diarrhea to that is G. That's a form of pellagra. And then they say, Joe, I have days where I cannot remember where I put my keys. Those are the 3 Ds. So I want to spend some time on this. I've lectured about G before, but in relationship to what we're discussing today, it's very important. And of course, any type of fever in children or adults, any bacterial fever, any viral fever, this is your key product. So vitamin C, which I'll get to in a second, calcium, and the cataplex G are crucial in here. So if you feed your youngster vitamin C and calcium, I don't care if he's already infected with whooping cough or mumps or scarlet fever or any type of viral infection. You load him up heavily with calcium lactate and vitamin C and a little bit of trace minerals B12, and you may be surprised in 24 hours. And Dr. Lee was right. You can eliminate most symptoms. He says all. I agree. And don't forget that high temperature reaction in children to calcium deficiency. If a child, and as I say, growing up, my children growing up, that's the chicken pox. That's how we kept their fevers under control. Other things too. But a lot of these conditions that they were exposed to, measles, mumps, chicken pox, we kept the fevers under control with regular chiropractic adjustments and calcium lactate. And he says here, it will always bring that fever down. And he's right. I've never not had that happen. Now, this is a great, I'm not going to read this through. I've talked to you about this before, how to make, and it's in my book, how to make barley water. A couple of barley to a quart of water. You soak it in the refrigerator overnight or the ice box, if you still have an ice box. And if you do, we will send you some money to actually get a refrigerator. But in those days, when Lee was lecturing, many people still out in the countryside, still had ice boxes. Soak it in there overnight, and then you just drink that throughout the day. It's not very little taste. Now let's get into the herbal side of this. Most of these viruses that we're discussing today, and most viruses in general, have an envelope. A virus that has an outer wrapper or envelope. This envelope comes from the infected cell or host in a process called budding off. During the budding process, newly formed virus particles become enveloped or wrapped in an outer, this is a cloaking device, everyone. An outer coat that is made from a small piece of the cell's plasma membrane. The envelope may play a role in helping the virus to survive and infect other cells. Here's some more information on it. You can get into and read this through yourself. The cell from which a virus buds often dies or is weakened and sheds more viral particles for an extended period. And that is because this lipid layer or protein layer, it's both. There is an inner and outer layer, provides a cushion or a diversion so that the immune system does not recognize it. And so, and remember, these viruses are relatively sensitive to heat. These envelope viruses, that's why fevers, to some extent, if the fever's not out of control, is good. It's okay to have a slight fever. It's burning it off. And or different cleansing products, soap, detergent. So, and so let's look at what some of these viruses are. You can see things like diseases that we've seen over the millennia, smallpox. And here he has genital herpes, herpes zoster, chickenpox, Epstein-Barr virus. Epstein-Barr virus, remember, is an envelope virus. You've got to get rid of that envelope. The hepatitis, look at the different conditions that people have worked with over the years. Rabies, measles, mumps, flu virus, the common cold, AIDS, on and on, encephalitis. Those are all envelope viruses. So from the standpoint of what we work with, where did I talk about? I thought I had it right here. We want to use, must have it further down here. Sorry, everybody. It's a little bit, I'll fix the order of this when I get to, yes, when I get to the end of this, I'll get this fixed in your notes. So the main herb that you want to, as an antiviral, to get rid of the envelope, remember, St. John's wort is it. But remember, St. John's wort does not kill the virus. If anybody's teaching you that, they're not teaching you the right thing. The St. John's wort neutralizes, disperses the envelope around the virus. Then you must have strong immunity to kill it. Strep, staph, E. coli, and the others that I've read. Okay, very important to help with this. So, and of course, the herb must have the hypericin, the good high amounts. Now, the mediherb has the highest amounts of this particular phytochemical of any St. John's wort that I've come across. So be sure that you use the mediherb one. Now, I know Standard has a, I think they have some kind of a St. John's wort IMT, but I would use the mediherb one. No offense to Standard. The other is licorice. Now, if you want to get a combination, you can use the St. John's wort just as a standalone, I take one of these every night before bed, 365 days a year. Helps you go to sleep, relax your mind, and any of these viruses that we might have been exposed to keeps them at bay. The other combination is this Viranon. I'm sure you've all used it now with what we've been going through as a country and a world population the last 2 years. Viranon, which has St. John's wort, licorice, and thuya. Now, why did Kerry Bone put that in there? Because the licorice helps stop the replication of the virus. And here is the article that came out back with the outbreak of SARS back in the early 2000s. And the glycyrrhizin is the big factor there, the big herbal factor there. And it stops replication. And this, of course, was written up in the Lancet, British Medical Journal, but you'll never see it in JAMA. You'll never see it in the US. But I gave you one from PubMed. So there were, if you could look it up. And the other that's in the Viranon is thuya, which is very good. Has, again, phytochemicals that fight viruses. And the other thing that I wanted to bring out here, which is the other part, most important part, is the amount of vitamin C. Thuya occidental is known as the best for its wide range of medical benefits and for being a very powerful medicine for the host of medical ailments. Its twigs and leaves are used for the medicinal properties. Thuya is chock full of vitamin C. Probably didn't know that, which one of the reasons is so effective in healing. In Canada, early settlers used to make a tea that has been shown to contain 50 milligrams of vitamin C per 100 grams. So that's good. Now remember, that's not ascorbic acid. That is the whole C complex. That's high. Thuya has been used for many conditions, including bronchitis, bacterial, and viral infections. Okay, so there you have it, simplex virus. So let's go back and again, my apologies for, now remember that when we talked about the calcium for children, we also want to talk about vitamin C. So we know that vitamin C is really the most important vitamin for immune assault. It not only is it for the collagen repair, but all immune challenges where phagocytosis process is active. You want not so much ascorbic acid, but the whole C complex, which is really the main component you want to talk about and have is tyrosinase. It's the anti-scurvy vitamin. And if you look at the vitamin C complex, you will see that the ascorbic acid is merely the outer layer. It is not the J factors. So I've reviewed this before. There's your oxygen carrying capacity. There is your blood integrity factor, and coagulating factor, vitamin K, and the vitamin P factor, which is for the damage to those little capillaries that happens in shingles, that happens in herpes simplex. This is the part of the vitamin C complex you want to absolutely load when you get a cold sore. The calcium, the F, the St. John's wort, or genital herpes. And so here is my review of the Cyruta Plus. That is your mainly the highest concentration of that vitamin P factor that there is. Any damage, radiation from invasive cancer uh, uh, applications that they use, leaky gut, bleeding gums, on and on. So, and of course, the other bioflavonoids, rutin, hesperetin, quercetin, they're all in. And the reason it's so important, and Mark mentions this in an article that I give you later on to read through, is the vitamin C factor. He used to describe it as the poison tip of the spear. But you could also look at it, if you use the analogy of a gun, and you know that the gun is the strength of the immune system, the bullets of the gun are the calcium and the C and the vitamin F, which supports the calcium fusion into the tissue. But the vitamin C is literally armor piercing. It will scavenger through the blood system, and it will find viruses, bacteria, and it will destroy them. It will invade them and blow them apart. And that's your armor piercing, similar to your armor piercing bullet. And so you could say, well, what should I use then? Cyruta Plus or Cataplex C? And my answer is yes, both. So you would use this as a general supplement morning and evening, but throughout the day, in the case of shingles, you would want to take up to 3 Cyruta Plus an hour. That's how much C I would use. And so with anything that is breaking down as far as collagen. Now, the reason I put this one is in this herbal blend is Gotu Kola is going to be your collagen repair herbal substance. So it promotes the healing of the connective tissue. It prevents scarring, and which is, again, especially out of the herpes, you can get scarring. Any type of ulcerations, damage or inflamed tissue, this is the herbal complex that you want to use in any type of viral infection, whether it's herpes simplex or herpes zoster. And it also helps with anxiety, depression, which is a big part, this emotional part of herpes, either simplex or zoster. Also helps with any brain damage as well. This is the herb for your pineal gland for sure. So that is your vitamin C. And of course, Judith DeCava has said this so well in her writings. If we exclude straightforward famine, scurvy is probably the nutritional deficiency disease that has caused most suffering in recording history. Most suffering from viruses. And if you get someone that has had shingles and those lesions do not heal quickly within 72 hours, really 3 days, you know they have scurvy. They have a severe vitamin C deficiency. So let me just make sure, because I did get these out of order. If I didn't, I'm pretty sure that's what yeah. Okay. So the last part of this, but not the least, I saved this to last because it is so important, is, and I've reviewed enough about calcium, and the vitamin F, as you know, is the counterpart to that. But I wanted to make sure that we looked at this. Oh, I'm sorry, not this. Is this part right here. Gut microbiome protects us from viral infections by keeping the immune system poised. This is the other missing element with people that get chronic shingles, that they're calling you, they cannot get rid of them. And they're saying, Joe, I'm using the calcium, I'm using the F, I'm on Immuplex, I'm on the St. John's wort or the Viranon, but still it won't go away. It won't clear. And that's because 70 to 90% of your immunity is in your gut biome. Now, these are recent studies. The microbiota is fundamental for health, but how these non-invasive microbes communicate with the rest of the body to influence host physiology is not fully understood. And all this research in Sweden at the university is essential for natural resistance to viral infections. They show that the release of the membrane vesicles from the gut microbiota leads to the systemic delivery of bacterial DNA to the host. This triggers innate immune DNA sensing. In other words, it is awakening. Without these DNA factors from the gut, the body is less sensitive to dealing with an envelope virus, thereby protecting, because of this awakening that this microbiota provide, they are protecting the organs from viral infection. The skin is the largest organ. The nervous system also, and the blood vessels, of course, huge. The bacterial membranes are small lipid bilayer vesicles that are released from the bacteria and are likely can transverse tissue as well as cell membrane barriers. So this immune modulation underscores many things, but it also underscores the risk of antibiotics. Antibiotics are commonly taken by self-medicating patients to treat undiagnosed illness. They use antibiotics for everything. Oh, even with a viral infection, they'll say, I'll put you on antibiotics just in case. But that cuts off that RNA surveillance mechanism that travels throughout the body to keep the immune system aware. So undiagnosed illnesses are sometimes prescribed to patients as a precaution against bacterial infections that often emerge after viral infections. So here is this vulnerability with shingles, with herpes, and then they put them on antibiotics, and it just takes them much longer to get better. Our results show that by the microbiota, antibiotics can adversely impair our ability to fight viral infections. This is the other thing to ask someone that has a severe herpes outbreak. Have you been on antibiotics lately? Do you use antibiotics often? So you want to be aware of that. So what do we do? Here are the main products, which people should be taking these as a foundation every day anyway, is lactic acid yeast, because it is going to change the pH. Remember, I didn't read through this, but remember, the pathogen is nothing. The terrain is everything. And so remember that when you bring back the balance of that terrain, if the gut biome is too alkaline, then it will not be able to fight off bacterial and viral infections. It will not provide that RNA sensing mechanism. It won't. It must be acidic. The pH of the large intestine is 6.5. Remember, 7 is balanced. The midline of the pH of the large intestine is 6.5. You can see it right here. And pathogens cannot live in that acidity, viral or bacterial. But today we're looking at. And then you can use a product which is great along with this. This is going to change the pH. Most probiotics do not change the pH balance to acidity where it belongs. But you can bring those in to provide friendly, outside friendly bacteria, both for the large intestine and the small intestine. And that is the beauty of lactans, along with your lipase to break down fat, amylase for carbohydrate metabolism, and protease. So it's a great, great product, especially for children. And of course, whenever you get a breakdown in the skin, in the colon, you always want to think of, especially with shingles. And I've had clients that have had a chronic shingles gone on for weeks, months, not taking care of themselves. And I always put them on a 3-month to 6-month program of dermatrophin, 6 a day, to stop the immune assault on that colon tissue, which is dermal, and also their skin. Now, I put a couple other things in here just to finish up about how enzymes and how important they are for any type of substance. In this case, we're talking about shingles virus, herpes zoster or herpes simplex, in the case of genital herpes or cold sores. And this principle of the trypsin and chymotrypsin, that they will scavenger in the blood and find them and digest them. So here is another very important product. If you're not seeing a resolve after using the herbs and the C and the calcium and the working with the gastrointestinal tract, you're not seeing it, add in the Panimmune. From tumors to any type of foreign pathogen, anything that the body does not recognize as its own, this should be definitely taken on an empty stomach. And here's where you can order these. They're not inexpensive, but these are the clients that either continue to have herpes break out or they cannot get rid of them. You want to add this in for sure. So to finish up here, these articles that I put in from Mark Anderson and from Lynn Mayer really are teach you how to build the immune system itself. And Lynn does a great job talking about the primary products we've already discussed, your calcium, essential fatty acids, your C, and the different products that they have, and what to eliminate. Remember that someone calls you and they say, I've just had a terrible herpes breakout. I'm really suffering. Well, how did they get there? How do these viruses reignite themselves? How do they become opportunistic? Well, Lynn talks about it. Lack of sleep, heavy use of sugar and carbohydrates, alcohol, cigarette smoking, and emotional breakdown, thoughts. And so very important that we follow those that outline. And the other is the article from Mark Anderson, which basically is, we're repeating ourselves here. If I can find it. Give me 1 second to find this here. Well, I guess I can't. That's okay. And the main thing that the other thing about building the immune system is I wrote an article a little bit while back and on winter wellness. Now, winter is coming on. We're in our end of summer cycle and autumn. So this is a great article you can copy and give to your clients. Goes into vitamin C and goes into the products that we've already outlined, plus a few others. But in the end, we want to make sure that we are encouraging that immune alliance. And that focuses on, we have the tonsils, if they have them, the lymph vessels, the thymus, the spleen, the appendix, the bone marrow. And your best overall product for that, along with everything else we've discussed, is Immuplex. So these come in this immune system packet and these packets can be taken 2 or 3 times a day, these little packets, if that makes it easier. And so I hope you've enjoyed this hour and a little bit and have learned more about the importance of working with these viruses, because you know what, everyone? They're here to stay. And they definitely are part of living in this earthly world. But strengthening that immunity, your gut, your pH, overall pH of your system, the antiviral herbs, and your gut biome are your key factors in working with either shingles or the herpes zoster, which it's also called, and herpes simplex, cold sores, and genital herpes. So thank you all for being on, and I look forward to seeing you this weekend in Denver, Colorado. And as always, my blessings to all of you. Take care, everyone.
Thank you, Joseph.
You're very welcome.
Thank you so much.